Did you ever stop and wonder if you could be related to everyone with your last name?
Just think if you're a Lincoln, how you'd be congratulated if Honest Abe were someone you could claim.
To clear up any mystery, just check your family history.
Genealogy's the name of the game. Now some ancestors you'll find you want to hide,
but most of them will fill your heart with pride.
Oh, your family tree, your family tree. Check your genealogy, find who was who and how who came to be. On your family, 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 family tree.
Welcome to the Genealogy Radio Show, the radio show that's keeping you in the loop. Today we bring to you a fascinating show on County Galway, and I'd like to introduce to you our special guest for this show, Lucas. Lucas, first could you give us a quick description of the Galway County for our viewers, and where did the name come from?
Well, it was the King of Connacht in 1124, Tardil Beg U Concobar, O'Connor, who built a fort called Dungalov, which encouraged the local people to settle the area. It would soon become Galway City, which the county was named after. A trading city and the home of many distinguished families who survive in Galway City and County today, Dungalov and the county as a whole were captured by the Normans, and many of their kind would come to call the county home. Galway City, being a population of almost 72,000, makes it the fourth largest city in the Republic of Ireland, with Galway County having a total population of 250,000, according to the 2016 census. Although Galway City is quite large, the county of Galway itself is one of the least populated counties, considering its size. The average population density in Ireland is 70 people per square kilometre, with 42 people per square kilometre in Galway. Galway is known for its lovely lakes in Lough Corrib, Lough Derg and Lough Mask, and its mountains, like the 12 Bens as well as the Mount Turk Mountains, found in Connemara National Park, which has great expanses of bogs, heaths, grasslands and woodlands. Galway is also well known for its Gaeltacht, which is the largest in the county in both area and population. 50,500 people live within the Galway Gaeltacht. That's just over half of Ireland's Irish-speaking population. Much of Galway's Gaeltacht is located in the Connemara region. One well-known aspect of the Galway Gaeltacht is the Aran Islands, as they were one of the most popular tourist attractions in Ireland. The three Aran Islands are Inishmore, Inishman, and Inisheer. These islands can be accessed by ferry or by plane to Inishmore. Unspadale and Unkehrurua are the largest centres of population in the Galway Gaeltacht.
You mentioned Tribes of Galway. What were the leading tribes, and can you tell us some of their collective history?
Well, the Tribes of Galway, after which the Galwegians call themselves in sport, are not some wild barbarian clans. They were four elite merchant families who made money by ocean-going trade with Europe, becoming successful landowners as well, and they built a few castles for themselves in Galway County. These 14 families dominated the politics and social scene of Galway City from the 1200s to the 1800s. 12 came from Anglo-Norman origins, while the other two were of older native Irish origin. Now, these families were among those who integrated into Irish culture, said to be more Irish than the Irish themselves. They could speak Irish, and as a first language for many, but they always saw themselves as different from those barbaric Irish clans outside the city. Though they often joined forces with these wilder Galway neighbours when it came to war. Although the 14 were civilized in their own way and more noble than the rest of Galway in their own view, they were all Catholic. So during big historical events, They were united against the Crown and their oppressive and discriminatory laws, like the Irish Rebellion of 1641, the Confederate Wars in the mid-1600s, and together opposed Cromwell in his conquest of Ireland. Of course, Cromwell won, and after ransacking the rest of Ireland and Galway County, he finally laid siege to Galway City, the final stronghold, in 1651 to 52, and installed loyalist English parliamentarians to power in the Galway Corporation, displacing the 14 families. It was Cromwell's forces that referred to the 14 as the Tribes, intending it as an insult, but they'd come to use it themselves as a mark of defiance. That name and that theme of defiance is still embraced by the tribesmen in sport, first ever backdoor champions in football, and in camogie being the first to lose an All-Ireland final, then losing 7 more, but then winning it in 1996 and turning it all around, winning a load of All-Irelands and National League finals. The 14 tribes took back their spotlight when King Charles II and James II came to power, but when Catholic kings lost, like the War of the Two Kings, their political power was taken away and given to the small Protestant population of the city and the county. But upon their surrender in 1691, the many forts and castles they held in Galway County and in Mayo, they were allowed to keep those. Most of the 14 families had a few castles, so if you'd like to know how many and where they are, I won't list them here, but you can find it on the Genealogy radio show blog.
And Lucas, would you be able to go through each family individually for us?
Of course. So the tribe with the longest history in Ireland would be the Kerwins, or Caerdúvan in Irish. They claimed direct descent from the legendary Mill, father of the Milesians, who landed on Ireland when it was full of gods and monsters. That's about as old as you can get. So old it's unbelievable, some historians would say. William O'Caerdúvan is a more grounded historical character, kicked out of Dunbally Castle, Dunmore, Galway, after a disagreement with some other families, such as the Birmingham family. He and his clan fled to Galway town, rather quickly becoming mayors and wardens, becoming a very well-respected family, especially around the time of Sir John Kerwin, who was a merchant lord who brought his family to Martinique, St. Croix, Montserrat, other English colonies at the time, acted as mayor and MP for Galway as well, and was knighted by James II after declaring for him against William of Orange. After losing political power, the family would still have prominent clergymen, a Sister of Mercy who managed a prison colony. I hope that Sister of Mercy lived up to her name. There was John William Kerwin, an outstanding preacher, the first president of Queen's College, Galway. Jim Kerwin died in the War of Independence, a tragic case of mistaken identity. He was shot by uniformed men who said he resembled the man they were looking for. And then there was Richard Kerwin, an eccentric chemist, author, award-winning scientist, and possible revolutionary, historians disagree. He only ate ham and milk, only, and the ham could only be cooked on Sundays. An odd diet, yeah, but being as successful as he was, there might be something to it. The Genealogy radio show does not recommend any dietary change unsupported by a professional dietitian. Next would be the Athy family. They arrived in the 1300s and claimed to be the first to build stone buildings in Galway. They were descended from a favoured knight of Richard the Lionheart called Gerard of Athy, whose son would sign the Magna Carta. The Galway branch held the position of Treasurer of Connacht and Sheriff of Kerry too. The Athys were not as powerful as the others, but whenever they were, they'd go after the Blakes, who I'll speak of next. The Galway Blakes descended from Richard Cadwell, who was involved in the Norman conquest of Ireland. Though he was of older British lineage, he actually claimed a descent from one of King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table. Funnily enough, in Le Morte Arthur, the main book on the legend, Arthur had another knight called Galeron, who was from Galway originally. Richard Cadwell's successors were named Blake for their dark hair. Himself, he became Sheriff of Connacht, and his successors would be in power as everything from sirs to mayors of the city, lord barons, positions in the county, and even chairman of the Confederacy of Kildare, a short-lived Catholic rebellion. Now, the Blakes had a lot of rivalries with the other tribes. The Blakes would say it was all jealousy. The other tribes would say the Blakes were treasonous and power-hungry. In terms of historical evidence, we see Blakes like Jacqueline Blake, Joyce, Spanish military officer who fought Napoleon's invasion of Spain. And we see Captain James Spanish Blake, who was an English spy and was rumored to have plotted in the assassination of the Irish Earls of Ulster who fled to Spain. Especially in the Blakes, we see the international aspect of Galway. The Bodkin family of Maurice Fitzgerald, Lord of Windsor, came with Strongbow, the original Norman in Ireland. The Bodkins held land in Munster, but their influence would reach Galway too. The actual name, Bodkin, came from a great warrior in their line. He used a short spear called a bodkin. Quite different from the Blakes, the Bodkins joined the tribes when one of theirs married one of the Athys. They were mayors, of course, the British officers and writers as well, but John Bodkin, Warden of Galway, had a unique distinction among the families. When he died, his body did not decay. A miracle, it was said. Truly a holy man God has left for us to admire and emulate. John was quite different from Dominic Dall Bodkin, infamous criminal of the worst sort, who trimmed his own family tree, so to say, in a dispute over land. Dominic actually killed a Lynch as well, an unlucky house guest. On a lighter note, there was also Manuel Antonio Flores Maldonado Martinez Angulo Bodkin, who was an admiral for Spain and a viceroy of New Granada, and then viceroy of New Spain. So that's Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela. And then New Spain, that was all Spanish territory in the Americas, north and south. Brown. This name is a little difficult, as laws had been passed to kill off Irish names. One of the laws from 1484 said Irish people, under penalty of confiscation, should take on the name of their profession or a colour, but also recommended taking your master's name. We should mention that. But the traceable noble dynasty of Brown came from Strongbow's army. Appointed governor of Wexford, their ancestor then crossed the county and conquered the town of Limerick with 60 knights. One of his 3 sons settled in Galway, and that one son was rather busy, and Bodkin is still popular in Galway and Mayo today. It was Geoffrey Bodkin who wrote the Constitution of the Irish Confederacy, which, as we've mentioned before, had a lot of the tribes in leading roles. Mary Bonaventure Bodkin was a Poor Clare nun and a historian, and the late Garrick Brown was a patron of the arts and the manager of the chieftains. The D'Arcy family, spelled with an apostrophe, No, the Arcy family took their name from their castle 30 miles out from Paris. They claimed descent from Charlemagne, first great emperor after Rome, whose sons ruled France, Germany, and Italy. And one group would have a lovely estate in the medieval equivalent of suburbia. So it may not surprise to hear you that the Arcys jumped at the opportunity to win themselves some land, and then they joined William the Conqueror and would eventually make it to Ireland. Or rather, that was the story they told for the past few hundred years. Recent DNA evidence has shown that they are Old Irish. The D'Arcy family is just the same as the Darcy family. Sir John Darcy would be made Justice of Ireland in 1323 by Edward II, and James Riva Darcy would start the Galway branch around Queen Elizabeth's era. The Dean family. They're a little ambiguous. A provost from Bristol or native deacons, we're not sure where they come from. We know of their later power and as some of the first mayors and magistrates. To be honest, there's not much for any Dean-descended listeners. We tried to find a connection to James Dean, but no luck. The Font family, with 2 F's, is also a quicker section, but it's unlikely any of you are listening too closely to this one. The heir to the Galway line died in the 19th century at the age of 105. But of course, if you're a Font from Galway, might get in touch. These families had a few castles each. The family is well connected to the other families, including the Athys, again, and the Kerwins and Bodkins. The French family, spelled with 2 F's again, descended from Maximilian French, whose line would go to Wexford, like a few Norman families, and then spread out. The Frenches were mayors and nationalists, like many tribes, members of parliament. Patrico French was a Spanish noble, and the late Conrad O'Brien French was an artist, soldier, and a spy for MI6. The name is less common now, likely because everyone thinks it's misspelled. But there are still some left in Galway, including some direct descendants, still with a castle. The Joyce family, most people would know for James Joyce, were like the Blakes, came from England, not Norman, and they were a little Welsh too. The Joyce family came to Ireland and married the Princess of Munster, and then took land in Connacht. There was a legacy of archbishops and cardinals, mayors and historians, and a jeweler who invented the Claddagh ring design. And then we get to James Joyce, who, born in Dublin, was descended from a Joyce from Connemara, though that sept left Galway in the late 1600s. Now the Lynch family, who were mentioned before, resemble one was visiting a Bodkin, murdered. Yes, well, generally the Lynches were a powerful leading family of the tribes, but unlike the Blakes, the Lynches were liked by the other tribes. They came from William Le Petit, an associate of Sir Hugh de Lacy. They had nearly 100 mayors of Galway, and one of Bordeaux. Anthony Lynch was a friar captured by pirates. Thomas Kerr Lynch was an explorer. They were related to the famed communist revolutionary Che Guevara. And there was Isidore Lynch, French-educated British soldier in the American Revolution, had to take a message in battle, and he decided to run between the British and French armies who were firing at the time, as this route, he said, was the shortest. Some Lynch nobles survive today. One branch went back to France and is involved in politics in Bordeaux. The Martin family is next, Strongbow's army again. The name likely comes from the word Martius, meaning warlike, and alluding to Mars, old Roman god of war. Though another theory says they're descended from the ancient Irish Firbolg, people pre-Celtic. We know for certain they were lucrative traders, even among the 14 tribes of Galway. It wasn't all about money, of course. They counted artists, priests, and abbess, a female abbot, among their numbers, and Richard Martin founded the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. The Morris family were originally the Mayors, then the Morrick, until settling on Morris. Mayors and sheriffs like the rest, but spent significant time in Spidal, in their county castle.
Thank you for your interesting work on the history of Galway. Galway is a very fascinating county, as I already said before, but I think we're going to leave it there for today's show. I'd like to thank Lucas for coming on to the Genealogy radio show, and this show will be repeated on Sunday on Radio Corcabashkin.
Did you ever stop and wonder if you could be related to everyone with your last name?
Just think if you're a Lincoln, how you'd be congratulated if Honest Abe were someone you could claim.
To clear up any mystery, just check your family history.
Genealogy's the name of the game. Now some ancestors you'll find you want to hide,
but most of them will fill your heart with pride.
Oh, your family tree, check your genealogy, find who was who and how who came to be. On your family tree.